Jason and Nat and Diana and a lot of other people, oh boy, have done something astonishing, and thank you all for being part of it. Who is at their first conference? Look what you did. That's great. So if you don't know who I am, I do those things that Mike read out. I teach and I make people better at what they do, and I talk a lot. And sometimes my talks are technical. They're about syntax and grammar and library functions, and sometimes my talks are more about people. We don't very often talk about people in this industry, so when I do, I get a ton of uptake. And why do people write horrible code? You meet horrible code, and you yell at your screen, you say, "What is wrong with you?" And it turns out there's an answer, and it's in the code, and you can find out what's wrong with that person by reading that code. So I thought I would tackle this question. Hands up if you've ever asked yourself this question. It's the kind of question that comes to you 2 times. One is late at night when you can't sleep, and you've got something important you gotta do, and you're like, am I not doing this very well because I actually suck? The other time is in the middle of the afternoon. You're just elbow deep in a bug, and you've got buffers full in your head. You've got a little visual map of what's going on. You're doing all the right things, and then when you find it, it's a typo. It's a 1-character typo, and you say, I am so stupid. Why is this my job? Who gave me a job I'm this bad at? And then you shake it off. Because chances are you are a good programmer. But should you want a slightly more definitive answer, I thought I'd spend some time with the question. But I chose the question very precisely. Each word is load-bearing. Let's start with the last one, programmer. I'm not going to talk about whether or not you're a good manager, or tester, or architect, or for that matter, person. Strictly about programming. And the word good, so overloaded. First of all, I'm talking about the capable and competent kind of good. Like someone is a good carpenter, or a good gardener, or a good plumber. When they do it, it gets done right. You can see the quality of the work, right? That kind of good. Not a good person, okay? Or a good daughter or a good wife. And certainly not like a good dog, right? There's a whole level of good which is about you follow the rules and you're compliant and you do what people expect of you. I'm not talking about that either. I'm talking about competent, and capable, able. I'm also not talking about great. Some of you may be great. That's wonderful, but that's not the bar. I'm not here to tell you that it is your moral duty to be the 100% best programmer you ever could be at all times. Be good. If you're good every day, that adds up. Okay? So we're here to talk about knowing that you're good. Which brings me to this word. Am I a good programmer? I don't know whether you're a good programmer or not. I mean, I can be pretty confident for a lot of the people in this room. And I'm certainly not talking about how to tell that person over there or the person on the other side of the interview desk from you is a good programmer or not. This is stuff to ask yourself that only you know. And if you think about these things, you can answer the question. And finally, it is a present tense question. When you get to a certain age, you wonder if you've still got it. I was told a few years ago about a person who retired rather than learn Git. And I feel that person. I have not retired. I am kind of learning Git. Anyone who's on a project with me will know that I'm willing and able to say at any given times, I think that's more than I can do in Git, sorry. And literally, could you tell me which green button to click? And then they tell me, and then we're fine. So I didn't retire, I'm learning Git, but I'm slow. But I may have been amazing once and now be just coasting down the hill. Or maybe I'm not good now, but I will be. Right? So it's not a sentence like, oh, that's it, you're not a good programmer. If the answer to the question is no, the answer to the question might be not yet. Now, I did a lot of great things as conference organizer, what I'm proud of, but one of the things I did that I'm not super proud of is I said, sure, I'll do a keynote. And then people said, and it's a reasonable ask, hey, you know that keynote that you're given in 2 months? What's it gonna be called? It's not an outrageous question, and I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't decided. And then I was at, I don't know, because it might be terrible, and I might have to give an old talk from another conference if I don't have time to make this talk any good. But when I did give people the title, they all went, and most of them went, I think I might not be, which is ridiculous. And a couple people quoted the Dunning-Kruger effect at me. So I'm the kind of person who does research when I write my keynotes. Not all skills are Dunning-Kruger skills. Okay? The usual pop culture paraphrase is, whoever is worst in the room at something thinks they are best in the room at something. A more accurate paraphrase is, the worse you are at something, oh, I don't think so. Just turn that off. Seriously, you need my password to turn off? The worse you are at something, the worse you are at evaluating how you are at it. The classic example is a sense of humor. The fact that you're not funny keeps you from noticing that you're not funny. And we all know that person, right? Who makes the humorous interjections in your group conversations. And everyone just kind of goes, oh, that's so that person. And they don't laugh, and that person thinks, these people don't have a very good sense of humor. They're not laughing at my brilliant joke. If you can't sing, as I cannot, you also may not be able to hear that you're not singing well at all. But it's not a universal truth. I can't throw a ball very far for a variety of reasons I won't bore you with. But none of my inability to throw a ball impedes me from noticing that it's traditional for the ball to get all the way to the person you're throwing it to, and that mine has not done that, or that it usually comes within 30 feet of them one direction or another. I can see that, I can observe that, and if we're in a running race, I can observe that people are running past me, right? So it's not an automatic fact that if you're not good at something, that you therefore are unaware that you're not good at it. Also, when you read the actual studies, it goes like this. We asked people to predict their score out of 10 on something, and then we had them do it. And the people who got the worst scores had the biggest divergence. The people who got the best scores had a smaller divergence in the other direction, and people in the middle got their scores pretty much right. What that means is that people who got 1 out of 10 thought they were going to get 3 out of 10, so they were out by 2. People who got 6 out of 10 thought they were going to get 6 out of 10, they were accurate. And people who got 10 out of 10 thought they were only going to get 9 out of 10. So that's true, right? 2 is a much bigger discrepancy than -1. But it's not the people who got 1 out of 10 thought they were going to get 10 out of 10. That's how we paraphrase it. The worst in the room thinks they're the best. No, they just think they're a little better than they are. So if you think you're a 9 out of 10, you are probably not a 1 out of 10. Dunning-Kruger or no Dunning-Kruger. But the other thing that people said to me was, oh, I guess I just have imposter syndrome. And we all do from time to time. We all think this is the moment where it all falls down. And they say, your last 7 years of excellent production of quality software was all for naught because you thought a comma meant something other than what it means. Someone I know had a bug that took years to find, and when it was found, they tracked him down at his new job to tell him about it. It was code in C, and he was newing up some cars on the heap, and he had used round brackets instead of square brackets. So he made one new character with a value of 3 instead of making an array of 3 characters, let's say. That one took forever to find, yeah. Here's how imposter syndrome feels. I know the little blue circle, and everyone else knows that whole big yellow circle. I am this tiny little piece of inadequacy who contributes nothing. There's nothing I know that the group wouldn't know if I wasn't there. This is reality. They feel the same when you're observing them. You are surrounded by people who know about the same amount of stuff as you. They know some things you don't know. You know some things they don't know. This is good. This is why diversity matters. I do not want 27 little yellow circles that are all on top of each other because their Venn diagrams are circles, right? I want for you to know some things that I don't know, and for me to know some things that you don't know. And that way we get the big, powerful group work. Once you understand that everyone's circle's kind of the same size, then you can really put value on the things you know that they don't know. That's good. And also it means they don't necessarily have more brain power than you. You're roughly peers. That's good. This is especially true if you're learning. You need to learn. You're here because you want to learn and grow. If your employer sent you, your employer wants you to learn and grow. But that means you're doing something you've never done before. That's the definition. So you have to be in a position where I have never done this before. That's how learning happens. If you're regularly trying something that you don't know how to do, you're not an imposter, you're a learner, and probably doing exactly what you should be doing. And when you tell yourself, I can't do this, because I've never used this editor, I've never tried to write anything in this language, I've never used this library, it's okay to say I can't do this, just remember to add yet, because that's what you're there to find out. And an aside about comfort. I did a long blog about this. There's this saying, if you're comfortable, you're not learning. I'm lucky enough to be a grandparent. My oldest grandchild is 5. My youngest grandchild is 9 months and a bit. And they learn constantly. That's all they do is learn. And they love it. I mean, the giggles of a 9-month-old who has figured out, this week it was, if you drop things off this side of your high chair, they fall to the ground just as reliably as if you drop it off this side of your high chair. They love learning stuff. And every once in a while, I learn things like that too. I have a good teacher, good tutorial, good resource, and I'm like, oh, I can see how that would be really useful. Let me try. Yes, oh, cool. Oh, hey, if I did this, would it? It does. And I'm having a wonderful time. An absolutely spectacular time. And people who tell you if you're comfortable, you're not learning, are wrong. You can learn while being completely happy. Yes, sometimes you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you don't know what to click, what to type. You have to look it up. You have to ask someone. And that feels, cold and prickly. You don't enjoy it. And you should kind of brace yourself for some of that. That's valid. I'm going to push through. When I'm done, I'll know how to do it. I feel uncomfortable now, but it's going to be okay. It's not a requirement. And it's not symmetrical. The world is full of teachers who are like, I'm going to make you feel bad. And then when you feel bad and say, hey, you're making me feel bad, I'm going to say, if you're comfortable, you're not learning. Like, that's not how it works. I don't make you uncomfortable so that your brain will accept the information. Be prepared to live with some discomfort while you learn, but it's not the price of admission. So are you a good programmer? It's for you to answer. But wouldn't it be fantastic if the programmers who wondered were the good ones? If that was enough? Think about being a good neighbor. Most of us have neighbors. Most of us have probably had a bad neighbor in our day. Mow the lawn at 6 in the morning. Their dog barks all the time. I don't know. There's a broken washing machine on their front lawn, something like that. And they probably never think about whether they are good neighbors or not. The moment you ask yourself, am I a good neighbor to my neighbors? You're thinking about those people. You're thinking about the impact of your actions on those people. The bad neighbors are just busy being selfish. Perhaps they don't have the cycles to have generosity and empathy for other people, but for whatever reason, never occurs to them to ask. So I think if you wonder whether you're a good neighbor or not, by definition, you're a good neighbor. Is that true of programmers? No. There are bad programmers. I have employed some. I've hired them on purpose after interviewing them. if you have a dog and you've done any training, there's a saying, no bad dogs. But that doesn't mean that everything a dog does is good. If you have a dog who jumps on people, who barks uncontrollably when the doorbell goes off, no bad dogs doesn't mean, oh, actually, that's fine. It means it's not the dog's fault. It's the fault of the trainer, the owner, the environment in which the dog's been put, or the expectations that are being put on the dog. It doesn't mean barking is good. There are people who would do better in a different job. I had someone working for me who was a terrible programmer, really wanted to be a good programmer, desperately wanted to be a good programmer, put in the time, listened, nodded, took notes, went away, did a different wrong thing every day. Eventually, I had to say, I cannot continue to employ you. I gave that person a certain amount of money in exchange for notice. Before the amount of time that money represented had elapsed, he had started at a new job, where he wasn't programming. He was doing customer relations. Was such a star that the person who recommended him into the job had her reputation go up for bringing him in. That's how much of a star he was. He was great, just couldn't write programs. And that's okay. Some people will do better in a different job. Some of them want to be good. I know there are lazy and selfish people out there who thought it was a great way to get a paycheck or whatever, but there are people who really, really want to be good, but they're not. Is it that they're not yet? Maybe. Maybe they never will be. It's worth asking, because wanting to improve is good, but you still have to actually improve. The dog still has to stop jumping on people, or else something more drastic has to happen. So I can't answer the question by saying, hey, if you ask the question, the answer is yes. Maybe there's some external metric we could turn to which would objectively answer the question for you. You seen this? This gets a lot of ratios. I like the one that's a dress. Of course, there's the bathroom tiles. But the thing is, this was always a joke. Look who posted it. It's posted by an account called Programmer Humor with a link to something under Reddit Programmer Humor. It was no one seriously meant that you were supposed to check in 365 days a year, no vacations, no holidays, multiple check-ins. That's not realistic. It's funny. Your GitHub check-ins are not an objective measure of whether you're a good programmer or not. Lots of us have code that doesn't live in GitHub, and especially not in public repos. But lots of us are still good programmers. You know what else doesn't count? Who you do or do not work for, or have not worked for. You can't tell yourself, I must be good, or Google, Microsoft, Facebook wouldn't have hired me. But you also can't tell yourself, I'm probably no good. After all, I've never worked at a company anyone's heard of. You might be good, you might not. The fact that a certain big company thought you were good is some information, but it's not a definitive answer. For one thing, you might have been good and then gone downhill from there. And if you're a consultant like I am, you can't answer the question by pointing out how long you've been independent. I mean, it is kind of interesting that I've been able to support myself, my family, and other people's families for decades with no infrastructure other than myself, but it doesn't prove I'm a good programmer. I might just be really good at sales, or I might be a good management consultant, which I am. I might be a good trainer. Time alone, including years on the planet and years pushing keyboards, doesn't prove you're good. Not to anyone else, but most importantly, not to you. Because remember, you're not interviewing a stranger. You're looking in your own heart and saying, am I in fact good at this or not? That's why certifications and diplomas don't answer the question either. They can be helpful for trying to prove it to other people. Sure, most people who take a course of training and then pass some sort of an exam learned something in the training. Some people didn't, and some people learned that stuff without the training or without the exam. Doesn't prove anything. Enough of these metrics might add up if I was trying to interview you, but I'm not trying to interview you. I'm trying to get you to ask yourself if you're good. This stuff is all external. But I think you can know. And I came up with 3 questions that I ask myself about things other than programming, and I believe they apply to programming. You can ask yourself these questions about parenting, about your relationships, your friendships. I'm going to use the example of travel. Who traveled today to get here with us? I'm guessing about a third. Yeah, it looks like about a third. I sort of traveled. I had to take the GO train last night. It's a new thing for me. I don't do that very often. I'm a good traveler. I'll just say that straight out. I am a good traveler. And here's how I know. The first is, when you think about travel fails. I don't mean bad luck, like the airline lost your luggage, which happened to me this year. I mean, you book your ticket in July when you should have booked it for June. Or you book to Sydney, Nova Scotia, instead of to Sydney, Australia. Or the wrong Portland. There are more than one Portland, a lot more. You miss a plane, as I did once, by getting muddled up that 1420 is not 420. You forget to pack the thing you need for the reason you went, right? So if you're giving a talk, you forget your laptop. You leave things behind. My husband very nearly left a carry-on bag behind in Union Station at the end of a 7-week trip. We were coming home the last leg on the GO train. We were surrounded by all our stuff, and we got up and left, and he walked away, and someone chased after him with our last carry-on bag. That would have been very bad on the way out. It didn't happen, and it wouldn't have been so bad on the way back. These are outrageous catastrophes of just not remembering, thinking, planning, double-checking. If you do these things every time you fly, you're not a good traveler. If you do these things once a decade or so, chances are you're on your way to saying you're a good traveler. People ask my advice. They take my advice, and after taking my advice, they come back for more. Should I change planes in Frankfurt or Munich? Munich, it's always Munich. I'm sorry if you've ever changed planes in Frankfurt, you know the answer is not Frankfurt. Here in Toronto, there's an organization called Global Medic, which sends paramedics and other first responders to worldwide disaster areas to help. And I have a friend who's a paramedic, and he went to Sri Lanka, which is a very long flight, and he hadn't flown before. And I gave him a little plastic box of earplugs. You can buy multiple little plastic boxes of earplugs for $1.79 in Shoppers if you know where they are. He didn't know that earplugs on a plane might be useful. He didn't know where in Shoppers they sold them or even what the packaging looked like. I just gave him the earplugs. When he came back from Sri Lanka, he just gave me the biggest hug. I'm like, good to see you too. We weren't really hugging friends. And he's like, those earplugs. There was a baby on the plane, and I remembered, and I put them in, and I slept. Like, yep, that's what they're supposed to do. But he had no idea. So I'm a good flyer. I know these things. If you didn't know about earplugs, by the way, you now know about earplugs. Probably the most important of the 3 questions. Do you enjoy it? I like traveling. I like flying. I mean, I don't like the part where you're at the airport. I don't think anyone likes the part at the airport. But when you're in the metal tube and you're going really fast, and you can feel it, you know, if you relax and close your eyes, you can feel how fast you're moving. And if you look out the window and you see the landscapes and the houses, and you get to a place and the ground is a different color. I went to South Africa. There were flowers I'd never seen before. You know, the sky is a different shape. I love that. And I'll go sightseeing, I don't care. I'll climb the Sydney Harbour Bridge, I'll go to the Eiffel Tower, I don't care if it's cliche for a reason. Love traveling. Think about these questions. Now, how would we apply these to being a programmer? Well, first of all, when I'm talking about outrageous catastrophes, I'm not talking about that time you crashed production because you pressed F5 instead of F4, or that time you accidentally deleted the whole database because you thought you were on staging. That we are kind of in no bad dogs land there. Whoever set that up so that one click or one key press could ruin everything, that's on them. And if you are the one who set that up, then yeah, that's an outrageous catastrophe. But if you just fell into someone else's catastrophe, I don't count that. And I don't count getting fired, and I don't count your company going under, even if you were running it. Those things happen for a lot of reasons other than whether or not the people involved are good programmers. But you know someone who's done this. They start in on something, and they get it working, and they get it working, and they add more, and they have meetings, and everything's going along until literally months later, they say, oh, wait, there's going to be 2 of those? I can't, there can't be 2 of those. It's not just that I don't have a place in the database for it, I don't have a place on the screen for it, all my data structures would be wrong. I can't fix this assumption that I made that turns out to be wrong. I've built everything on this. You know that XKCD with the giant edifice and there's a tiny little stick here and it says this is an open source thing that some guy called Fred wrote and hasn't been maintaining. It's like that, only that's your assumption and you can't fix it. That's a catastrophe. You have to throw that work away and start over. You could make a product that everybody loves, everybody uses, nobody can live without, and nobody can change. Even you don't really understand why it works anymore. And every time someone goes in to try to change parts of it, they break it and they end up rolling it all back. We've all worked on those systems. If you made one of those, you made an outrageous catastrophe. It's great that everyone loves your product, but it's terrible that nobody can change your product. I think probably the last time I spoke in Toronto, I heard this story, certainly one of the last times. It was when I was in a brief foray into the world of .NET. And the speaker told a story from his past. He was working at a bank, so he's doing something fintechy. And it's a very old story because I heard it, 20 years ago, and it was old then. He wrote this stuff for months on his own machine, because that's what we used to do. And he sent screenshots to users. He did demos for users. All his stakeholders loved it. It was ready to go live. And literally, the last week, when there's nothing else to do because you're done, but they had to set the date in advance, he said, oh, I did not think about perf. I just assumed it'd be faster on the real server than on my own machine, but I should test perf. And he had a pile of data, hundreds of thousands of records, and he brought up a complicated report. Whew, yes, that's good perf. He writes the number down. That's okay. People, I think, will be okay with the report taking that long to come up. He does a few things, writes down the numbers. I tested perf. Whew, that's a bullet dodged. Then he said to himself, oh, wait, what about scaling? It's going to be on a server. There's going to be lots of people hitting it. He calls to a friend, says, could you come and join me? So the friend starts hitting the same server from the friend's machine, doing the same exercising. And astonishingly enough, all the perf numbers are the same. The report took 2 seconds to come up when he was the only one on the machine, and even when his friend is heavily doing data entry, still takes 2 seconds to bring up the report, no degradation. Oh, great, ship it. Now the reason I'm telling you the story is because there is a number at which this system fell to its knees. Number of consecutive continuous users just falls over, cannot use it, unworkable. And that's okay, every system has those. You can throw money at it, you can have multiple servers, it'll be fine, right? The problem was in this case that number was 3. And the fellow who told the story likes to say, if I just had one more friend in the office. But that is an outrageous catastrophe. To get to the end and go, oh geez, I should check perf, right? That's not smart. And to think that your scaling test is to have 2 people hammer on the system at once. It's a bit of an outrageous catastrophe. These are like missing planes. If you only do them once a decade or so, stuff happens. If you do them all the time, something's going on. Another thing is, what do you walk away from? Whether it's a personal project, whether it's someone else's open source project that you joined in on, or whether it's a work project, if you manage to get transferred to another team every time before your stuff is done, why is that happening? Why is stuff, the last 20% of any given project takes about 80% of the time, right? So why are you bailing when it gets to 80%? If you've managed to avoid all of this stuff, you should pat yourself on the back. Making typos, typing code that the compiler says you forgot the semicolon and then you put the semicolon in, that's not the hallmark of a bad programmer, right? Projects that don't work, projects that can't be fixed, months of time, years of time wasted, That's bad. When you let other people come and ask you your advice, you are basically crowdsourcing your self-evaluation. There are people out there who are probably really good at programming, but no one ever asks them for help because it doesn't occur to them that they could. So this is not a reversible thing, but if people do come to you, then it is obviously known in certain circles that you can be come to, and that's useful information for you. They may just come straight up to you and say the equivalent of, should I change planes in Frankfurt or Munich? Okay, I have to parse a thing. I have to make this well-known transformation on a thing. Do you know how to do it? Is there a library? Didn't you do it somewhere else? That's great. But of course there are these like semi-public places, right? You have Discords and Slacks and group chats and mailing lists. People ask on Stack Overflow. A lot of people ask on Stack Overflow. In their heart of hearts, they're hoping a certain person will answer. I have 2 or 3 people who are like, oh, I hope this person answers, because I know I can count on that answer. And I do email people sometimes and ask them as well. And when you give someone advice, no matter how they asked for it, do they in fact take it? Sometimes they reject your advice right off the top, even though it's correct, because they don't believe you that it's correct because you don't have a reputation yet. So when someone takes your advice, there's a good chance they're doing so because of your reputation, not because of the persuasiveness of what you're saying. And of course, if they take it, do they come back and say, that worked? I did a talk called Stop Teaching C, subtitle, When You're Teaching C++. I have no objections to C as a language, I just didn't like how we were teaching C++. And in the years after that talk, I kept getting emails from people who said, I did what you said and it worked. And they just made me so happy. And I've said this before, if you ever have a chance to email anyone and say, I did what you said and it worked, please send that email. You have no idea how it can brighten up a day. But people who say that to you, people who come and ask you another question, they're telling you your advice is worthwhile. And that means it probably comes from knowing what you're doing. If you are on Twitter, if you have a blog, then everyone who reads your stuff is asking for your advice, and especially if they rebroadcast your stuff and tell other people your stuff is worth reading. But the big one to me, the most important litmus test, as well as the most important advice for having a good life, is do you enjoy it? Do you like turning the skin on your fingertips into working software? Is it fun? If you won the lottery, would you still do this? Maybe not for your current employer, but would you still just in general do this? You probably enjoy it. Your code knows. When you look in your code, you'll tell right away. Or things called please work, commit messages that say another attempt, I guess. It's there for you. Look at your code. Did someone happy write this code? Look at your projects. Talked about that before. Are you finishing stuff? And I mean finishing, like tests, documentation, update pathways, all of that. Are you really truly finishing things, or do you just run away from them the moment you have the opportunity to do so semi-gracefully? And then look at your resume. I know that seems extreme, that your resume could glow with joy, but why shouldn't it? Like, you want someone to pay you to do this. And our resumes all look like date, company, expedited the da-ha. Like, did you like it? Was it great? Do you want to do more of that? Are you really stoked at the thought of coming to this new place and doing whatever it is they do? When I'm traveling and I can't sleep, I turn on the TV and I watch quite a bit of this show. It's called The Repair Shop. People bring stuff from their attics. Usually there's a family connection. This is this person's father's theodolite, which is for measuring distances. And they're grimy and gummed up and seized up and tarnished, and they have holes in them, and the stuffing is falling out, and they're missing a leg and whatever. And the makers fix them up. They're like, oh, I'll carve a new leg to match the old ones, or I'll use my special degreaser fluid to get all the stuff on. I'll make a new brass what's-it. But the thing is, while they're doing it, they're talking, right? And at first they say things like, oh, this is very tarnished, or wow, this is a large hole in this painting right through the person's face, or Boy, this teapot sure is in a lot of pieces. But then when they're doing it, they're like, oh, this is looking good. Yes, that's moving much more freely now. Oh, the new leg looks just like the old legs. I like what I see here. They are talking up their own work and praising themselves in the moment. And I thought, imagine if we could do that. Like, yes, it's getting the right number now. Oh, my test caught a problem I hadn't thought of. Thank you, test. I'll just go take care of that now. That's in the right place. It's the wrong color, but it's in the right place. This is better. It's easy to spend your day grumbling. Oh, it's wrong again. What is wrong with this stuff? But in fact, you probably do 100 good things, ordinary, normal, everyday things, for every thing. And if you talk yourself through it, like, yes, okay, so that's written. Okay, hey, it compiled this time. That's progress. Why not? Why not enjoy it? So ask those 3 questions for a moment. Have you avoided outrageous catastrophes? Do other people ask your advice? Do you enjoy it? You're not sure? Okay, get better. If where you are now is maybe good, maybe not, then if you get better, you'll make it to good. Or when you hear the list of what to do to get better and you say, but I do all that, then maybe you'll accept that you are in fact already good. So how can you get better? You know this list. Come to conferences, blogs, podcasts, Twitter, code, books, take courses. I don't want you to do this on your own time. When you get better, you get faster. You get more productive. You help everyone around you get faster and more productive. That's work. That gives value to your employer. This list of stuff, if you got a couple hours a week and 2 weeks a year, you could do everything I'm going to go through with you. And you would certainly save that amount of time in being better and more productive, and people around you being better and more productive. I've programmed for long enough that I've heard a lot of the myths, and there's the 10x developer, right? This is the person who is 10 times as good as everyone else in the room. The best way to be a 10x developer is to make 10 developers twice as good as they used to be. So if you want to go to conferences, I think the room wants to go to conferences, or watch them on YouTube, which I guess the camera, well done, good choice watching on YouTube. These are some conferences I go to. ACCU is in England, C++ on C is in England. I was at ACCU this year. C++ on C was too close to us. I've been in the past and had a lovely time. Their venue is almost as nice as ours. We are here, and I'm so stoked about that. At the end of August, I'm going to go to a little town in Norway that I don't know how to pronounce. It looks like it says Kongsberg, but there's dots on it, so it's probably Kingsburg. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go there. And in the fall in Berlin, there's meeting CPP. There's a huge list on isocpp.org. They have this wiki where they list all the conferences in date order. And you can go through and plan out your year and say, okay, I can go to 1 or 2 or 3 or 7 or whatever. And these are the ones I want to go to, and you'll see the dates of when registration opens and all of that. I think it's astonishing, having done this for this long, that there are so many C++ conferences that I can't go to them all. There used to be none. And then there was one, and then there was another. And now we've had this wonderful explosion. And it's wonderful. Because for one thing, you don't have to buy a plane ticket if you don't have to go too far. So the more the merrier. Keep them rolling. You can read some blogs. I found these blogs by searching for stuff I wanted to learn about and continually landing here. I've seen all of these people talk as well, which helps. I know they're good explainers. They happen to cover stuff I care about. You might find different blogs. The nice thing is these days, people only blog once a week or so. So you don't have to every day go and see if there's been more stuff where people are telling you. My blog subtitle is Really Good Donut, because in those days people were blogging I had a really good donut today. It was great. It's not a useful blog. These blog entries are always useful to me. And I believe Rainer's here. I don't think the other 3 are, but still good content for me. Once upon a time, we only had one podcast. and they called themselves the only podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. Then they had to change the name to First, and now they're on a long-term hiatus. But if you are not caught up on all the old CPP casts, go listen to old CPP casts. And it is a great way to experience that emotion of people really enjoying their work. When people come on a podcast to talk about what they've been working on, they have a good time. They're like, oh, and another great thing was, and you can catch in some of that energy, and you can ask yourself, how can your work or your side projects take that to you? Jason, I thought I saw Jason, thank you. Jason has a YouTube channel. The link to the channel is long, but you just have to remember Lefticus, and I'm sure if you search for his name, you'll also find it. Bryce, I saw Bryce, and of course Connor is our program chair. And Matt, I think went to C++ on C instead of coming here, but I forgive him. These are good podcasts to listen to and to enjoy, and to get some inspiration about some other projects that maybe you might want to join in on, or some books you might want to read, or what have you. I love C++ Twitter. It's friendly, warm, welcoming, and supportive. And people are laughing. I block. Block first, ask questions later. And what remains is an enthusiastic, friendly group of nice people. And when somebody does something that isn't that, I stop seeing them. Works for me. If you'd like to get started following C++ Twitter, Shafiq keeps a bunch of lists. He has one that's specifically C++ people. The link to it is gross. It's like a GUID or something, so this is a slightly more readable URL. Look for the C++ list. You can follow the whole list, or you can go through it and pick individuals who you might be interested in. I mentioned isocpp.org for their conference list. That's one of their important missions, is to disseminate C++ information. So they have a Twitter feed, which is basically just the feed of articles, videos, and whatnot on their main page. The only downside is it's a double click. You click once to go to their little précis, and then again to go to the real thing. But it gets you started and give you other people that you might want to follow. Say you decide to follow me on Twitter, and Jason tweets something clever, and I retweet it, and you're like, wow, Jason, that looks like he's got good stuff going on there. So you start following Jason, right? And we all retweet each other all the time, so you'll build that list of your own personal interests up pretty quickly. And if you don't care about something that someone else is really into, like graphics or some high performance or fintech or something, then don't follow them. You don't have to slavishly refollow everything someone else retweets. Think about Twitter as a river, right? It's going by, you can sit on the bank and watch it. Maybe a leaf will float by, maybe a stick will float by, maybe you'll put your hand in to feel it. Then you walk away. Come back the next day, the river's still there, right? Doesn't care whether you're there or not. You cannot read it all. Don't even try. And unlike a real river where the same stick does not float down twice, really good stuff gets retweeted over and over and over, and you'll have plenty of chances to read it. I have a longtime friend called Scott Hanselman who's very active on Twitter. I stopped following him. He posts a lot of really good and insightful stuff, and then he posts some stuff I don't care about, and other people retweet all the good and insightful stuff, so they just filter that for me. So I see lots of Scott posts, but I don't have to follow him. Don't feel obliged to read it all the time. And this is where you find those blogs, those podcasts, those conferences. It gives you that connection into what's going on and how you can learn more things. But Twitter is 280 characters. Even blog entries are typically just a page or two. Very few people do hour-long videos. And you want to do some big things. You want to read some big pieces of code, not 10 or 15 lines in a blog entry. When you read good code, it's well organized. The functions are a good length. Everything's well named. It's inspirational. You say, I could do more of this. I really see it making a difference here. Yes, I think I want to do things this way. And if you're confident, when you come across terrible code, you can say to yourself, this right here is terrible code. I get it. I want to make sure I don't do this. I now see why this is bad at scale. And that's fantastic. You're learning from other people's mistakes, the cheapest and easiest of all learning. People want books all the time. People come on the Discord and they're like, hey, I'm just getting started in C++. Can anyone recommend me a book? And the answer to that will always be no. There are thousands of C++ books. There are thousands of bad C++ books. There are some good ones. Guy wrote a great one that my name gets to be on because I helped a bit. And it's a great book. But if you just started in C++, I don't know. You gotta have some background in order to be able to understand why the core guidelines can make your code better. On the other hand, if you've been programming in C++ for 20 years and you want to get better, Bjarne's PPPP book, highly recommended for beginners, maybe you're not going to want that one. I have to know something about you to recommend you a book. So it's not a great first question. But there are good C++ books, and if you're a book person, go for it. And there are courses. There are some free ones. There are a lot that are not free. I'll tell you why they're not free. I think it was Friday, but it might have been Saturday. Before I came here, I recorded the last module of a C++ fundamentals course I've been updating on Pluralsight. I started recording 15 weeks ago, and before that I wrote for about 6 weeks. And I didn't really do any other billable work in all that time. I can do that because people pay for Pluralsight subscriptions, and I get some of that money. If you would like, by the way, a trial code for 1 month of free Pluralsight, contact me privately, and I will give you such a code. You can get a week on their website, but I'll give you a month. I think courses that cost are worth it because that's how you get instructors to put their time into doing it. But it's not enough to consume all of this. You read, and you listen, and you watch. And if you then just go home and say, there, I learned, we're not getting anywhere. You have to do stuff. So someone has explained to you why constexpr is useful. There should be some constexpr showing up in your life after that because you understand it and you want the benefit of it. Someone shows you a pattern, a technique, a library function, a whole library. You don't just say, well, I'll keep that in mind if I ever need to parse JSON. Like, why did you invest all this time into learning about JSON parsing if you don't need to parse JSON? You learn about stuff and then you start using it. When you use other people's stuff, you save time. You have less bugs. We were saying no raw loops last century. And then a certain person showed us that calls to algorithms are lurking in all of our regular code. And we are writing raw loops where we don't need to. You can just say, wow, that's interesting that so many things are actually a swap or a rotate or a partition or something. But if you then say, but I'm just going to keep writing my loops, then you haven't really learned. You have to start using the things you learned about. And if you find a good place to ask questions, if you find people who are knowledgeable, next time don't Google, next time go there and ask. If you find a great blog, maybe go there once a week, again, instead of just Googling. Probably the most important thing you can do is to find a bunch of people. They give you support and encouragement. They say, you can do this. You go, girl. I knew you could. That's fantastic. We all need that. They also give you practical help. A year ago now, maybe more, I was writing a course for a private client, and they wanted some stuff on coroutines, and I had done nothing on coroutines, nothing. And I did my dutiful searches, and I'm like, I can't make this work. I don't know what I'm doing. I went in our Discord, the include Discord. I asked in the coroutines channel. The person who wrote the paper answered me, and I was unblocked, you know? And I could have struggled for days and weeks and made things up, but I really needed that answer from that person who knew. This is also another place where you find out about conferences and whatever else, announcements. And you can start to be helpful here. You can start to offer advice when you find a community that you know is not going to say, I so can't believe you just said that. Why would you tell anybody that? That even if your advice is wrong, a supportive and helpful community is going to say, actually, I think in this circumstance, it might be wiser to, right? I mentioned Scott Hanselman. I don't follow him, but still I saw this tweet. Someone said to him, this is a long shot, but how do I get better as a programmer? I'm 1 year into my career, but I don't feel like I'm learning as fast as I could. Most tickets I get, I need some assistance getting unblocked. Notice not all, just most. 1 year in. Love Scott's answer. Scott says, first, welcome to tech, and congrats on your year. And the question answer is like, I only have 1 year's experience. Scott's like, you have a year's experience already. Good job. Then he says, keep notes. This is a fantastic tip. When you're blocked, when you're stuck and someone unstucks you and you don't really understand what they did, they came over and went, and then it worked, write it down, learn about it later. Then you'll be learning things that are appropriate for you. If you're never going to need a JSON parser, don't invest a week learning about JSON parsers. Learning about the stuff you had problems with a week ago, that's smart. Third, he says, study groups, which hooks back to what I said about community. Lean on your friends. You can't do this by staying up later. If you look on your keyboard, I'm sure he meant up, with a Y and the O are. And fourth, be patient. You'll be in tech for 30 years. To which I say, oh, 30? Is that the number you're going to go with, Scott? Okay. So, I gave you a big list of how you can get better. Now I'm going to invert the list. You could try speaking instead of just listening. Let me tell you, user groups want speakers. If you email a user group leader and say, I just converted my company code base from this to that, and I think I could probably do a half hour on that, they will say, okay, fine, got you in for next Thursday at 8 p.m. User groups want speakers. And if you speak at a user group and don't die, and so far I've not seen anyone die, you will want to do it again and again and again, and then you will start speaking at local conferences and international conferences, and then suddenly you'll be trying to see if you can arrange to keynote in Antarctica. You can write a blog. You don't need a license. You don't need a permit. It's free. When you have a problem, write up the answer to the problem once you found it. I was really confused about when to use string and when to use string view. And I watched this talk, and I read this blog, and I tried this other thing, and now I get it. Here's the rule. That's a blog entry. And other people will want that information too. It's not embarrassing that you didn't know. This is all new. We're learning. It's good. You can tweet. If you can't feel that you can write a whole blog about string versus string view, but you did find a super great episode of C++ Weekly, you can just tweet and say, this really explains blah, blah, blah. And it crystallized everything for me. You should watch it. That's a good tweet. That's a helpful tweet. You should be writing code. If you can't use what you're learning where you work, maybe you're learning the wrong stuff, but assuming you really want to learn that stuff, get out there and write it. And run it and see what happens. Is it faster? Is it more maintainable 6 months later? What are the consequences of doing things a different way? And of course, if you can get real-time feedback by sitting with someone else and pairing, by sitting with a large group mobbing, by doing code reviews, this is all good. Eventually, you may decide you want to be on a podcast. Ordinary people come on podcasts, and podcast hosts need guests. You may even decide you want to teach your colleagues at like a lunch and learn or something like that. Again, ordinary people become trainers because it turns out they like it. You might even end up writing a book. So say you're better. Say you've tapped into your inner joy. You will discover that you have cycles and you have emotional capacity that you did not have before. When your work makes you sad, caring about your work is dangerous. When writing code and fixing bugs is misery, pushing a rock uphill that just rolls back down in the night, then you don't really want to get invested in it. Once you realize that you're good, once you're having fun, you can start to care. And this is when people start to have conversations like, is this the right level of abstraction? Is this abstraction good? Oh, hey, is that abstraction too? Neat. This is when people start to think about performance before they ship it, to argue about naming. I did a whole talk about naming, and people love to argue with me about naming, and I'll do it. We'll talk anytime. Start to worry about who's going to come back into this code. Will they understand it? Can they tell what I'm doing? Is my decision-making really obvious? Can you change it later without breaking things? You might start reviewing other people's code, either to improve them or to learn from them and improve yourself. It's usually both every time. And you might start to lift your head up a little more to not just the individual lines of code, but to the interface that your code is exposing to the outside world. Start to have opinions about how libraries should be put together. You might even get into architecting two systems that are going to talk to each other and talk about how that's going to happen. And then you can lift up from code and say, well, people are always asking how long stuff is going to take, like how I'm supposed to know when I didn't do it yet, or how done am I? Another former employee story, he was always more done every time you asked him, right? Nobody wants to say, I'm 50% done, and then a week later go, oh, I discovered one of those load-bearing assumptions. I got to rip a bunch of things out. This is going to take longer. I'm 30% done. No one ever says that, although it's the truth and it happens. They say, oh, I guess I'm had a few stumbles this week, got some surprises, users, what are you going to do? Anyway, I guess I'm like 60% now, right? And then the next week, well, they're 80% done. And this fellow once told me he was 95% done on a 2-hour task. That is 120 minutes. So I said, so you have 6 minutes work left on this task. Why don't you pop down and do that, and then we'll carry the meeting on when you're done. He was very angry. He's like, of course I don't have 6 minutes of work left on it. Well, then you're not 95% done, dude. Like, it doesn't mean you've typed most of the code. That's not what percent complete means. Anyway, we abandoned percent complete. In our system, in our lives, stuff is done or not done. And if you don't like that, break your stuff into smaller pieces that can be done or not done. Thanks. There's no more 50% complete. But you know, managers really want you to be able to estimate, to be able to predict, to be able to give progress management measures. You can do that. You have the energy for it. It'll make you more useful to them. You could care about testing. That'd be nice. Testing mostly saves your own butt, but you don't know that until you've done it enough. Documentation, build systems, source control, yeah, learning Git, and other people's code, the secret weapon, right? I don't have a canoe picture in this talk, but I've talked about this before. I built my own canoe. It's gorgeous, but I built it with wood that other people cut into strips and put tongue and grooves on. I didn't grow a tree, cut it down, use libraries. You might even start to care about standardization. A bunch of people here care about standardization, and you can meet them and see if that's something you want to care about. Whether that's within your company, on your side projects, within that community that you found, whatever. Then you could really get wild and start caring about people, your fellow programmers, who are not that different from you. They're not 10 times as smart as you. They don't know more than you. They just know different things. You might teach them. You might blog, tweet, talk, upload stuff, because you think someone out there is going to care about this. You might mentor somebody. Incredibly rewarding thing to do. You will never learn as much as you do by trying to explain it to someone else. And one of the things that makes my courses work well is that I have the ability to reach what's called beginner's mind. What are the things you think when you're just getting started? A lot of documentation is written by people who know what they're doing and reviewed by people who know what they're doing. And when you know what you're doing, this documentation makes perfect sense. And when you don't, you're like, I don't know what that means. You know, I had a problem years ago, and I had an occasion recently to reread the question and answer pair. I had switched phones. I had 2 Microsoft accounts. I was trying to run Teams on one, and it nuked all my identity. As soon as I installed Teams, everything on my phone was my work identity and not my personal identity, which was unfortunate because Teams was the only thing with my work identity. And so I asked a question about this in the appropriate Stack Overflow, and someone's like, you need to set up an email alias. And I'm like, how would that help? And they're like, read this web page. So I read the web page. I'm like, it doesn't help. Like, I'm sure everything on that page is accurate, but it's not telling me how this solves my problem at all. When you mentor someone, it's much more one-on-one, and they immediately say, that doesn't help, I don't understand, and you will have to truly understand it. I talked about code review, and I talked about writing good code for others to use as their baseline, as their examples, or just to flat out reuse. And yep, I said all of these before because they are important. So let's go back to the question. How can you know whether you, nobody else, are right now a good enough programmer? Have you avoided the most outrageous catastrophes, or at least minimized them? Do other people take your advice? And most of all, do you enjoy it? I've thought about all of these. I don't write as much code as I used to. spend a lot of time and effort doing things like putting talks together, writing courses, but I do write code. And I am keeping up with what's going on. And you know what? I'm a good programmer, and I hope that you are too. And with that, we have time for some questions. Please use the mics so your question will be in the recording. Oh, it's always... Whenever my first question is from Titus, I'm like, oh God.
Thank you. This was lovely. And one of the points that you made in there, and I think we might have been talking about this recently, is that your learning should be part of your job.
Yes.
Right? And I lectured about this last week in a different venue as well. What do we do to break the stalemate of, feels like all the employers are like, nah, that's not your job?
Yes. So ideally, you would go to your boss and you would say, I would like to be better, and I think if I can have this time, I'll be better, magically. And your employer would go, geez, I don't know, this computer stuff is pretty complicated. You're the expert, sure. But that probably isn't what happens in your job, right? I would suggest it as an experiment. I know companies that do things like summer hours, where you don't have to work Friday afternoons, things like that. So if you could suggest that for 6 weeks, you could have 2 hours a week. And, you know, to be able to put in your timesheet, learning. And then have a regroup after that time and see how people feel. At the minimum, I think you'll find people feel happier. And you may have specific things that you can tie back to and say, you know that thing we just did that went so smoothly? That was because I had learned about whatever. Employers are often painted as heartless, cruel, soul-sucking machines that just want the most code for the least money. But all the employers I know spend a ton of time on, how can I hire people? I desperately need to hire people. How can I keep people when I have them? So the magic words retention, employee retention is a big deal. And if you were to say, I think it's a kind of a retention issue for a lot of us, we need to stay up to date, that can hit a manager where they need to hear it. Hi.
Hey, Kate. Really good talk. I wanted to ask about the I part of this talk.
Yes.
We kind of sort of already have a community of people who maybe shouldn't answer that question with yes and do, and the people who should answer the question with yes and don't kind of get pushed out by those people in our community quite a lot.
Yes.
I know that like a lot of your talk was kind of about this, but you did also have like bad programmer slides, and I was looking at those and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here.
So it is true that we gatekeep, as Mike mentioned in his opening remarks, right? And we tell people, you're not a real programmer unless. Don't do that, step one. But I think also, you know, what I talked about with the repair shop, people are like, oh, this is really looking good. I think the more we normalize that, the more we tell someone else, that's really nice. I like the way you're handling that. Hey, did you talk to person in department because they did something similar? Talk each other up. The more that it becomes normalized, that there are lots of ways to be a good programmer. And it's really not about posturing and the ability to say strong sentences in a firm voice, which some people seem to think is an important programming skill, right?
The piece I really wanted to ask about this is how do you think that the culture of asking ourselves and self-evaluating affects diversity in our community?
I would want to lead most people to the answer yes, right? And also, if the answer is no, like what are you going to do about that? If you don't enjoy it, is that because you work with a pile of toxic people? And I meet a lot of people in places like the Discord who come to understand that you can enjoy your job. And they're like, that's a revelation. Wait, you enjoy your job? You all enjoy, you like going to work? Maybe I'm working in the wrong place. And maybe they need to leave that toxic environment for a joyful, welcoming environment, right? Which is good, in my opinion, because I want to tax all the toxic environments and make it hard to be a toxic environment. But the more you encourage someone else, come along with me, you're gonna love it. This is a fun job. Instead of, it's a grind, it's horrible, but hey, you get a lot of money. I don't want to encourage people that way. I want people to love the work. Yeah. Hi.
Now I can see you. It's a fantastic tool chest for confronting these issues at an individual level that you presented. But there is a certain amount of emotional labor required following this advice. Could you talk a little bit about the role that senior people have in alleviating some of that emotional burden?
I think senior people have a bunch of things they can do. The most important is that they can verbalize that they are enjoying things. They can also verbalize their mistakes. They can verbalize, like, I don't know how to do this yet. I did that wrong, but I can fix it, and make that a more normal thing within a group. They can mentor people instead of saying, every idiot can do this. Why can't you follow it? I told you once already. You know, my parents both have PhDs in physics. And when I had trouble with physics homework, they would say, a child could do this. It's like, I am a child? And I can't do it? I turned out okay, it's fine. My parents are mostly great. But you don't want to be that senior programmer who says, a child could do this, right? A junior could do this, an intern could do this. What a thing to say, especially to an intern, right? So when you enjoy, then you teach in a more joyful way. And that's probably the best thing seniors can do. And when you see that someone's feeling like nervous, you can say, I know you don't know how to do it. That's what we're here for. We're going to fix that. You're going to know how to do it. And people have to tell me which green button to kick in Git every time. And you know what? They just do. They don't say, Kate, I told you last week. It's the huge green one that says approve. They say, well, I want you to approve it. Is there a button that says approve? And I go, oh, thanks. So, you know, that's how to help people get where they need to be. And verbalize that you don't know everything all the time yourself either. Hello.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
There's a thing that I think is a really important ingredient to being a good programmer that I think is, you speak to somewhat indirectly here, but I think it's underappreciated. And that is the importance of communicating and being able to communicate. I think, like, I've known some really brilliant people who were programmers whose contribution mostly got lost because they didn't know how to convey it to people, and they didn't put the attention on making sure that what they did was understandable. And I was wondering if you could speak to the importance of communication.
Absolutely. You know, especially in the 80s, we talked about programmers as being people who liked pizza because it was flat food that could be slid under the door. And they make t-shirts that say, you read my shirt, that's enough interaction for today. And that's a stereotype of who we are. A programmer can do a great job locked in a room. I had a client, the floor was about as big as this, and it was all cubicles, except literally up on a little platform at one end, there was these separate cubicles, and that was where the AS400 guys sat. And they were everything you think of if you hear the AS400 guys. They had long beards, they didn't go to lunch with anybody else, they kept the company running, nobody knew what they did, nobody talked to them. And we used to kind of have that as the vision on a hill. When I'm a big girl programmer, I will be in the locked away cubicle and not go to lunch with anybody because I'll be good then. And that's not the recipe to success now, right? The recipe to success now is the programmer who's helping other people, who's writing code everyone can read and understand, who answers questions quickly and helpfully. And that's a skill that most programmers need to be explicitly taught. It's not enough to say to them, you should think about other people when you write your code. You actually have to show them, look, this code is considerate. This code is less considerate. Getting managers to value, I think sometimes managers are scared that there'll be a little mini union. You know, 6 developers will get together and say, we are not using CMake anymore. And that would be bad, I guess. Would it? I don't know. The point is that if you trust your people to work with each other and to help each other, then the manager's job gets easier. That may not always be the manager's goal. Yeah. But it's super important. Got to talk. Got to talk. No other brave souls? More things I forgot to say? I do remember one thing I forgot, and I'll say it while you walk up, which is the silly Git chart. The reason people ask if you do Git stuff in your free time is because they want to know if you like it. They say, does this person like programming enough to do it in their free time? The first half of that question is legit. It's just the second half that's nonsense. Go ahead.
So I'm joining as a designer, and I found a lot of things that I could definitely relate to in your awesome presentation. But to piggyback off of communication, is there any tools or references that you think are good for designers to talk to developers, and the other way around as well?
Let me sing the magic of questions. The simplest question can trigger sometimes an info dump, but sometimes it can also really get to the heart of what's going on. So instead of telling someone, look, here, you can resize this, you can say, now, do people need to resize this? Because I'm putting a thing to resize it. And it just changes the focus. But if you ask people, what's hard about this? What do you use this for? What would you change? Those kinds of questions that are super open-ended, they start conversations. Yeah, ask a lot of questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.